go.
You get it?
Nice.
Got it. I can see. How was it?
All right, now there's not as much pressure on this video.
Perfect.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of LaGrange. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation given today by Barbara Hennigan. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, as we prepare to celebrate the birth of your beloved Son, we ask that you continue to light our way so that we may reach out to help our neighbors and strive with others to build a more peaceful and harmonious community. Let the light from tonight's Hanukkah candles brighten the lives of our Jewish brothers and sisters. Let the light from our Advent candles bring hope and renewed faith to our Christian brothers and sisters. And let the light from your love help keep our servicemen and women both here and abroad safe and remembered. We also ask for you to give strength and hope to those who are going through difficult times, especially for those in Michigan whose lives have been forever altered from yesterday's brutal school shooting, and for your continued blessing and guidance for Rotarians throughout the world. Let your light be the flame that warms us all this holiday season. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Thank you, Barbara. That was nice. Today is December 1st, so you were right. Holidays are here. And now, Barbara, you can come up and introduce our visitors and guests.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone that's here today. It's good to see everyone. When I call your name, if you'd be so kind as to stand so we may acknowledge you. We have Iris Hersey from LaGrange Daily News today. David Huddleston, Richard Freeman, guest of Judy Freeman, Patrick Cruz, guest of Jim Thornton, Interact Advisor Kelsey Henderson, Andy Harbour, Elections Officer from the Elections Office, guest of Bill Stump, and I think the guests will be introduced by Randy next. So thank you. Please join me in welcoming them.
Thank you, Barbara. It's great to see so many familiar faces back today. Welcome back. I hope everybody had a really good Thanksgiving. We got a lot to be thankful for, and I hope y'all celebrated as much. We did not meet last week, so I do want to recognize the members' birthdays and anniversaries from last week, and then we'll do this week as well. Last week, November 24th, Mike Angstadt had a birthday, as well as John Asbury. And then Ed and Betty Biggs celebrated 46 years of marriage. Congratulations. And then this week, Jerry Scarborough has a birthday on the 4th, and James Van Shore has a birthday on the 4th. So happy birthday to y'all, as well as member anniversaries. Sandra Bowie, 28 years. Luther Jones, 28 years, and Charles Smith, 48 years. So congratulations to y'all, and to Joy and Charles Baker celebrate 3 years of marriage. So congratulations to everybody. Thank you so much for that. All right, so we do have a few announcements to catch up on. First of all, if everybody would please silence your cell phones for today's program. A few things going on this weekend next. The Christmas parade is Thursday. We are partnering with the Jungle Bus. So if you would like to walk in the parade and walk with the Jungle Bus, if you will be at in front of St. Mark's Church no later than 5:45, and then as the Jungle Bus comes through the parade, you can slide in with them and walk with them and represent Rotary in the parade Thursday night. Also on Saturday, we are ringing the bells for the Red Kettle campaign for the Salvation Army from 9 to 3. All the time slots are filled, so thanks for everybody that volunteered to go out and do that at Walmart this weekend. But you can still donate through there's a link in the email that Barbara sent out, and all that money that's collected and donated stays right here in Troup County. So thank you for that. We appreciate you. Also, we have a couple other opportunities to make donations throughout the holidays. One's for our Project North Pole, which is for the Rotary Youth Challenge students that we collect each Christmas to give them gifts, as well as our food closet donations that you can make donations to either of those via your club statement, through Venmo to Barbara, or cash or check to Barbara. So lots of opportunities to help out around this holiday season. So please, if you feel like it, help where you can. We do have a couple of minutes for Happy Dollars if anybody wants to put anything in.
Well, hello. I want to give a big thanks to a fellow Rotarian. Karen Thompson called me and said that RT Systems wanted to make the lives of our Boys and Girls Club more happier. So her company is going to donate the gifts off our Christmas wish list for the kids at the Housing Authority. So thank you.
So for the first time since the year I was born, the Bulldogs are 12-8. Good
That's a happy dollar I can get behind. Thank you, Jay. Now I will call on Randy Nix, our member, to get the rest of the introductions and introduce our program.
Thank you. It's been so long since I've been here, I started to send my resume about we could introduce me, so I can introduce the speaker. Some of you would probably not believe this, but I think that my first 10 years in Rotary, which started in '94, I did not miss I had perfect attendance, I think, for 10 years, and then somewhere I fell off the wagon. But I finally reached that R85 age. I'm old enough to get away with it, and I've kind of gotten out of the habit, but I need to come back. It's great to see y'all. I have the privilege today to introduce a couple of people that I consider to be really, really good friends of mine. First, I'd like to introduce Sam Teasley. Sam, just raise your hand. Sam and I served in the General Assembly together. Sam has the distinction of having been a person that they assigned to me to mentor. Now, if he does good today, then I'll take credit. If he gets out of line, I won't take credit. But Sam works with Brad in the Secretary of State's office, and Sam is a real quality guy, and I'm certainly glad to have him here. For our speaker today, Brad Raffensperger. Brad is a great friend of mine. Brad is by trade actually a professional engineer for over 30 years. He has his own company, Tendon Systems LLC. It's a specialty contract and engineering firm with nearly 200 employees. The firm is operated in 35 different states, and he owns and operates a specialty steel manufacturing plant as well in Forsyth County. He served also, that's where I got to know Brad, in the General Assembly from 2015 to 2019. Has a bachelor's degree in engineering, civil engineering from Western University, and was awarded an MBA from Georgia State University. Brad and his wife Tricia have been married for 42 years and live in Johns Creek. Brad is a member of North Point Community Church. On a personal note, I consider Brad to be a great friend of mine. Brad is probably one of the most maligned people I have ever known in my life. But the thing that I will say about Brad, with all the venom that's been dumped on him, I've never seen him respond in kind. Brad has always responded respectfully to those who were not respectful to him. He has always been there with facts. He will tell you the truth, and I have appreciated that. Brad and I probably got closer over the last year and a half because I saw what was going on with him. I know the quality of the man, and I would text him and say, Brad, I'm praying for you. And within just a minute or two, I'd always get that back. We need your prayers. Keep praying. So I really appreciate that in the man, Brad Raffensperger. You know, I think, and I'll say this, I believe that once we finally get past the emotions and kind of the hysteria that we have lived in for the last year, to a point where we depend on rational thought again, that there are going to be some people who are probably going to need to apologize to my friend Brad Raffensperger. With that said, I know Brad has some positive things he wants to say to you, and it is my delight to have Brad come up as my guest for today, and I hope y'all will give him a welcome.
Well, good afternoon. Randy actually started off, he said positive things, because it's always positive when you're around Rotarians. Because if you really look at Rotarians, that's why you're part of this organization. You're always optimistic people because you have a vision of getting things done. And I think about what Rotary's done worldwide. First of all, you defeated polio. The governments always like to take credit for that stuff. But it really started with Rotary. And I had a friend that was a roofer. He got involved with clean water throughout other parts of the world, and that was a Rotary venture also. And now you look at how you take it on human sex trafficking, and a lot of that was a Rotarian from up in Roswell, Georgia. So, you know, congratulations, you guys do so much, and you accomplished so much. But also, I think one of the things that we could do to really help, you know, move America forward is that I think every morning up in Washington, D.C., we need to get our Congress to read the Rotary four-way test. They read the four-way test. Just imagine. Is that the truth? Wow, what a novel thought. Is it fair to all concerned? Wouldn't that be nice? And then will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Those are just four tremendous values. When I served in the State House, I got to serve with people like Randy. And that's real easy because we're on the same political party. But we also had in the State House in Georgia, I think there was a kindness that we had towards people on the other side of the aisle. Because actually in Georgia, you're not on the other side of the aisle. There could be a Democrat here and a Democrat here, like I did. And so we had conversations. And I do think we had those common visions and common purposes on so many things. I think what connected a lot of us is that Georgia is still a traditional state. And I think it was our Christian faith a lot of times that we saw the humanity in each other. And I think that's really important. Because I think when you see people's humanity, that's when you start seeing kindness come out and bubble up. So I want to talk about two things today. Really, the new election reform bill that was passed earlier in the year, the Senate Bill 202, the Election Integrity Act of 2021, to really explain what it does and what it doesn't do, because it got passed and all the legislators left home to get back to doing, put food on the table. But unfortunately, then people started saying it did this and it did that. So here's briefly what it does do. Well, I'm really excited for number one, for the very first time, the absentee ballot situation, we're now incorporated driver's license number with photo ID. And that's something that they've been using in Minnesota now for 11 years. So if you look at that, it's not a red state, it's not a blue state thing, it's a nonpartisan, bipartisan, we love everyone, measure. But it's an objective measure because it's photo ID based. And we think that'll help restore confidence in the absentee ballot process. And we think that's a good thing. We've also now have put a deadline on when you can request your absentee ballots. People before were requesting absentee ballots all the way up to the Friday before the election day. You'll never get it. So now there's a day of setting a schedule of 11 days before so that you can make your request, the county receives it, then they process it, then they send you your ballot, then you can send your ballot back. And so that's why that 11 day was set. And we think that's a good thing because that really helps the county's plan on if you don't vote absentee, perhaps we'll see them on Tuesday, but there still will be another week of early voting also. We also increased early voting. And so people didn't realize that, but we compared very favorably to New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. We now have 17 mandatory days of early voting. That's 3 weeks, 2 Saturdays, and any county that wants to have Sunday voting can have 2 Sundays of voting. So that's 19 days. And that's actually up 1 day from what we had before. So those are really the 3 big ones. And I do want to give a shout out to Troup County. They know how to run elections and they run them well. And so that is really important. And I saw a poll worker earlier today. There you are. And I want to give you a shout out individually, but anyone else that volunteered to be a poll worker, God bless you. Because what you're really signing up for is a 16-hour day on election day. And that's really amazing how stressful that is because you got to go up and down the line and make sure all those numbers line up. And you got to get both of them to line up to the exact count before you can report it up to the county. And you're dealing with people, some people are happy and some people aren't happy, and you deal with it with great grace. So thank you. It's really important. And what I try to help everyone understand that the people that are your poll workers, they're the people that show up at Rotary or they show up at Publix, or they show up at Kroger, you see them out there at the ball field, but they're your neighbors. And that's a good thing because you trust your neighbors. You may not trust someone that's 1,000 miles away because you don't really know who they are. But when you understand the people doing the work are your neighbors, and what they want to do is make sure you have an honest and fair election. And so yesterday, I understand you had a commissioner race, and it was fairly close. But you do know that you had an honest and fair election so that people can shake each other's hands at the end of the day and wish him well in his new position. So the other thing that we've done is we've cut down on lines. Now, in the June 2020 primary, we had some really long lines in some of the counties. 139 of the counties, you could say they had great success. What I mean by that is they started at 7 a.m. and they finished at 7 p.m. Did they have stuff that happened in between that 12-hour time? Probably, because you always do. But I call that great success, especially in the middle of a pandemic. But we also then had 15 counties that had really pretty good days because they had maybe 1 or 2 little glitches. One precinct opened up at 7:15 instead of opening up at 7 a.m. But we had 5 counties that struggled. And so what we did is we sent out to the counties afterwards information of how many voters do you have registered in each of your precincts, how many pieces of equipment do you have, and based on the throughput you get voter per hour, you don't have enough equipment. or you need, to do something to change this because it's not gonna work for you. And if you looked at what happened in November 2020, the average wait time in the afternoon, average statewide that we were monitoring was 3 minutes. Yes, there were some precincts that were up to 50 minutes, but the average was actually 3 minutes. So the General Assembly, when they passed SB 202, what they want to do is make sure you keep lines shorter than an hour. So if any line shows up longer than an hour, the next election, you'll have to either split that precinct in half, or you'll have to add additional equipment. And we think that's a great accountability measure. Your counties are doing a great job already, but we want to make sure that you continue to think when you're going out to voting, you get confused and you think you were in a Chick-fil-A line. You couldn't believe how fast it went, but that's what you want, that's what we want, and that's what your county election director wants also. The other one that did get spun up a little bit, and I don't know if this was an issue here, but we talked about the ban on giving water within that 150-foot zone. When you are within a 150-foot zone of a precinct, you're not supposed to be politicking. And what happened in the runoff race of 2020 is some campaigns were within that zone and they were approaching giving people bottles of water. But when they did that, they looked like Superman. They had this t-shirt emblazoned with either their political party or the candidate, but you could kind of tell who they were supporting. So it was really politicking that was happening within that zone. And that's why the General Assembly said, okay, within that 150-foot zone, no food, no water. You never could do it before, but we want to be very specific about it. We just don't want any electioneering within them. Let the voters make up their own minds. And so that's why that was put in there. I know that gets spun up, but also because we said there won't be any lines longer than 1 hour, I don't think you should have too many people fainting and dying of thirst in that 20-minute wait that they're going to have, possibly. We also now have another very solid measure. We have accountability for all counties. I don't think you'll have this issue in Troup County, and I know you won't. But when you have counties that have struggled since 1993 with a lot of election dysfunction and election management issues, the state election board finally has a measure that you could replace a board. Now, it's a very thoughtful and thorough due process. I didn't say that right, but in other words, there's a review panel that consists of the general counsel of our office, along with a Republican county election board member and a Democrat county election board member to do a deep dive. The General Assembly for a certain county, which was Fulton County, made a request for a review panel for Fulton County. And that's what they're doing right now. They're doing a deep dive. What are you going to do to improve? What are your processes? What's the throughput? What are your logistic issues? What is your total staffing issues? And then they'll report back to the state election board and they decide what the further action. We think accountability is a good thing. And I'll give you an example of 2 counties where you used to hear a lot about. One was Broward County in Florida, and the other one was Palm Beach County in Florida. Governor Scott replaced one of those election directors. Governor DeSantis replaced the other county election director. And you don't hear about that anymore because they got the message that the rest of the people in Florida are sick and tired of it. And I would fair to say that people in Fulton County, and I happen to live in Fulton County, I'm tired of it. But I think that most people in Troup County are tired of it too. You just want the process to work, and we all do. We want everyone to have a great election experience. So that's really what happened with SB 202. And that gives us a quick overview of anything. And I can take questions after we're done. But I did want to talk about what happened in November 2020. Because if people looked at what happened in November 2020, they really thought, what's going on here? And there was all this misinformation, disinformation. So I wrote a letter to Congress, and they got it on January 6th. I'm sorry, I was busy with an election on the 5th, but I got it up there as soon as I could, but they were kind of busy with some stuff that day. But when I let them know, it was my dry humor. But maybe passive aggressive. But they said that there was 2,056 felons that voted. We identified 74 or less, and we began investigations of that. They said that there were 66,241 underage voters. We identified that there's actually 0. But one thing you have to understand is that in Georgia, you can register to vote when you're 17 and a half. But we know when their day, month, year birth date is, but the rest of the world doesn't. we protect identities like that. So we knew that they would actually be 18. So we checked every one of those 66,000 and we report to Congress that there's actually 0. They said that there was 2,423 unregistered voters. There was actually 0 unregistered voters. They said that there was 10,315 dead people. When I wrote my letter to Congress in January, I told them that there was 2. About 6 weeks ago, Ryan Germany, our general counsel, he came back and told me, Brad, we actually found 2 more. So we're now up to 4. But it was 4, not 10,315. But you add it all up, there was never enough to overturn the results of the election. The one thing that did happen is that there was a lot of questions about what happened at State Farm Arena. And so because of that, we actually then brought in and requested the GBI and the FBI come in and actually interview all the poll workers who were there and also review the surveillance video that we had for 24/7. If you actually watch the whole run of the videotape, what you'll see is the big black boxes that are absentee ballot storage boxes. In the morning, they're empty. They close it up, they seal it and zip tie it and secure that. Then they bring them and put them underneath the table. Around 10:30 that night, they thought they were done. But when we found out about that, and we knew that other counties were still counting, we called and we told Rick Barron, the election director, they can't quit. They need to work till 1 or 2 o'clock. Other counties are. But what they had done when they thought they were done is that then they took their ballots that weren't scanned and then they proceeded to put those in those absentee ballot boxes. And then they closed them up and slid them underneath the table. When they found out, they got that call, no, you need to continue working. Then they pulled them back out. Now there were ballots in there. They opened them up, put them on the table, and they proceeded to scan. And so that's really what happened. Unfortunately, when they said that they were done for the day, the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, and other independent observers left. And we had a monitor there. He left. Once he found out that they were back working, he got back there in about 50 minutes along with an investigator. But there was that 50-minute window that there was no outside observers. But that's all recorded, with the video surveillance. And we proved with the FBI and the GBI that nothing had happened in that time. So that was one of the things that was really brought up, and really that's still out there as an urban legend. One of the things that people need to understand, when I tell my Republican friends this, it really helps them understand what happened. In Georgia, 28,000 voters skipped the presidential ballot, but they voted down ballot. So they looked at the 3 choices for president, those 28,000 voters, and they did not vote for anyone. And yet they went and voted for other races. In the metropolitan areas of Atlanta and Athens, Senator David Perdue got 20,000 more votes than President Trump. And in the Republican congressional districts, and this is one of them, Republican congressmen got 33,000 more votes than President Trump. So when people hear those numbers, because those are just facts, then that really helps them understand exactly what really happened in there. And so as a Republican, was I disappointed? Yes. And if you're a Republican, you were disappointed also. But that's why after we checked out all of the allegations that were made, and after you look at the data, you understand that President Trump did come up short. And as a Republican, I'm disappointed. And I understand my party is grieving. So if you're in the other party, I know you're not grieving and you're doing a joyous dance. It looks every day for you is Mardi Gras. But we're grieving, and I understand that. But that's what really happened in 2020. So we continue to press forward, and I wrote a letter to Congress and really told them, all this information, and that's on our website, sos.ga.gov. I just wanted to get to the number of 2. It's actually now 4 dead people that voted. But that's really what happened in 2020. A lot of misinformation, disinformation out there. And bit by bit, we responded to it as quick as we could. But you have to understand that our office isn't that big. We actually have 2 investigators that are assigned for investigations of elections. Now, we do have about 20 total. So everyone that was involved with professional licensing, corporations, securities, and charities, all those other investigations, We shoved those over, and they were all working on election fraud cases, those investigations. And those cases, some have come before the state election board. There's some that we're still, buttoning up, and they'll be coming before the state election board. So the process of that, just so you understand, once it comes to the state election board, if they find cause, then they'll remand that over to the Attorney General's office. And then for stuff that is very grievous, but also you understand that you have a local DA that really will prosecute, then we send that to the local DA also. So there's really two tracks of potential prosecution for people that have committed election fraud. We also have, counties make some mistakes from time to time, and that's usually letters of reprimand, things like that. But what I can tell you is that I'll continue to fight hard to make sure we have honest and fair elections in Georgia. I have 15 minutes before you guys are done today, Mr. President. And so I'll take questions if anyone has any questions. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm again embarrassed, I don't know the answer, we probably should. But when you determine that a precinct needs to either split or change or add more equipment, who funds that? Is it locally funded?
Oh, it would be locally funded, right, yeah. So
the state can tell you have to do it.
yeah, there'll be a directive that you have to do it. So, and that's why your county election director is looking at where am I going to have this? Because if you have growth in your county, it may not be the whole county. All of a sudden, it's exploding in this part of the county. So you have to be prepared for that growth that you have in that 2-year cycle. Yes, sir.
Go ahead. First, thank you for coming down here and presenting to us. You strike me as a man of incredible integrity, and I appreciate that. One of your parting comments was that you will continue to fight for honest and fair elections. How do we plan to do that?
Well, we continue to make sure that we follow the process, to follow the law. We follow the rule of law in our office. Even though I do lean this way, I'm on the right side of the aisle. And I don't know where your county election director, what his leaning is. But that's really important that all of us, we just do our job. That's all we're doing, is doing their job. I think that's what you want us to do. And then I know that today, there's 2 people that run for that county commission seat. One person is happy and the other one is disappointed. I understand that. But we want to make sure that we have run a fair and honest election. So we want to make sure that whatever our rules are, we want to make sure we have the appropriate guardrails in place. And these are the guardrails. So we had the Democrat Party sued for us to accept absentee ballots past 7 p.m. on election day of 2020. We fought. We actually lost the first ruling. Eleanor Ross ruled against the state. We then appealed it and we won on appeal. So the absentee ballots, as required by state law, would have to be in for 7 p.m. And so that's what I'll continue to do, is protect and defend the laws that are passed by your General Assembly. Yes, sir.
In the new voter registration law, there is, I've heard it at one point, but I forgot, but there is a final fail-safe mechanism if somebody doesn't have a photo ID, and can't, if there was something like if he had an address and the last 4 of the social or something like that, 2 items of information that would suffice to get that person registered. Do you know what those are?
I don't think, when you talk about the last 4 numbers of the social, I think you're really referring to the new absentee ballot identification process. So we asked now for driver's license number. 98% of all active registered voters have a driver's license. If they don't have that, we do ask for birthday, day, month, year. But if you don't have that, then you can also give us your social security number. But if you don't have any other means of verification, the state of Georgia, as we do for in-person voting, will accept up to 14 different forms of identification. I believe it's the magic number. And so that would be the same process for all forms of voting. So what we really now are doing are saying, if you vote absentee, if you vote early, and if you vote on election day, we are treating you all very similar as a similarly situated person.
So if you have the last 4 of your social security number and your birthday.
Birthday, day, month, year, Those are two unique identifiers.
So those two things will get you registered at an absentee ballot.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about the thought process and the rationale of mailing out the absentee ballot request to all the registered voters before the election?
Oh, yeah. Thanks. When we were in the middle of COVID, we were looking at what do we do? And the challenge that our elections did in the 159 counties, all our people were mostly working at home. So we made a decision. We did talk to the four corners and the three corners, the House, the Senate, Lieutenant Governor, and the Governor. We said, we are going to send out absentee ballot applications to every active registered voters in Georgia. What that did is it served several purposes. One is instead of you getting, like you did in November 2020, 3 to 7 applications from different groups, you would get one application. Because all of these activist groups, generally from the left side, were going to be sending out applications. In addition, the counties, the large metro counties were going to be sending those out. But Cherokee County and Forsyth County had no intention of sending those out. Indirectly, it actually helped the Republicans. I didn't do it to help the Republicans. What I did do is that if you would have gotten 7 applications, because I know people did this in the fall, people filled out 1, 2, or 3 of them, and they sent them into the county. Oh, I don't know if I did that. I'll just do it again. What's the harm? Well, the harm was he had no one working. And so what was he supposed to do? He had no manpower. And so it would have just swamped the vote. As it was, Troup County did fine. But I think that they got through it, but they were sweating, but they got through it. But Fulton County actually had some issues just because it swamped the vote. But that then led to another issue, and that we got a consent agreement with Fulton, and that's another issue. But what it allowed to do is have a more uniform process. We did not do that in the fall, but it really allowed everyone to have the opportunity to vote absentee, and many people did in the June 2020 primary. And I believe that if you'd asked most counties, they would have preferred you to vote absentee for the primary in June, just because they were still struggling with mental and really the health safety issues. But that's really what the thinking was behind that, in a uniform process.
My question may be a little more philosophical. First of all, thank you for your comments today. If, per your comments, the election in 2020 was fair and had integrity behind it, the philosophical question I have is why do we need a law to promote fair elections with integrity if it was already demonstrated that it happened already?
Well, every 2 years we've updated the election laws. So when I took office in January 2019, the first thing we did was pass, not the first, but in about 35 days, we passed House Bill 316. And when we passed House Bill 316, it allowed us to join the electronic registration system so we could update our voter rolls objectively with other states. Also allowed us to buy a verifiable paper ballot system so we could buy a new system because we couldn't use the old system. And it also then really set the table for the 2020 cycle. And so we've always made changes. So moving away from signature match as your sole means of identifying an absentee ballot is a good thing, because we have been sued by both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. We've been sued by both parties because they say it's subjective. So we now moved and incorporated an objective component, which is driver's license number. And we think that that really helps kind of settle that, but also helps restore confidence. That although people alleged an awful lot, when confidence is so damaged, that is not helpful for our civic society. It really ends up degenerating our society, and I think you end up with a lot of social discourse that's not healthy and helpful to all of us. And so if we can show confidence, that's good. And by moving to driver's license number, that's a very good thing. The water lines, you never could provide water or food within a 150-foot zone, but they read it and they saw, well, what about this, what about that? And so the General Assembly said, no, this should be very clear, nothing within the 150-foot zone, but also now keep the lines shorter than an hour, so you don't have that issue. So those are a couple of examples. Yes, sir.
I think somebody in Chicago once said, vote early often, but do we have a fail-safe system that only counts a person once. In other words, they vote in person, they've also sent in 2 or 3 absentee ballots. Can you describe?
Yes, they do. We do have a fail-safe, but going back to the June 2020 primary, what happens sometimes when you show up to vote early, and the person that's working the polls gets busy and doesn't check that off, next thing you know you're not checked off. And so we had a person, I believe it was Long County, that voted twice. So it does happen. It doesn't happen frequently. And we find out about it post-election. And then you come before the state election board, and you have to explain why you voted twice.
Could you comment on you're trying to create fair elections, but you're following laws that may or may not be good laws? I know I'm from North Carolina, and there's a lot of fun made in North Carolina, having districts that run from basically the South Carolina line all the way to Virginia in a very narrow band to have certain voters in them. Could you comment on how redistricting makes the fairness of elections from your perspective?
Well, the General Assembly does the redistricting process, and we have nothing to do with that. And that's a really Representative Dick's question. But what I'll say is we've added 1 million people, and I know that some of the districts have moved around. And that's really supposed to be based on population. And what happens is that some people like them and other people don't. I was in the 6th district, and I'm now in the 7th district, and some of my neighbors aren't real happy about that. But when you have population adding of 1 million people, what's really a shame is we didn't get another congressperson. Then we wouldn't have all this, then we would have had plenty to go around. So you're just moving things around. But there have been a lot of talks over the years of having these nonpartisan redistricting commissions. But as soon as you get people involved, it's not nonpartisan. It's just like in some states, the Secretary of State is appointed. Oh, really? So that makes it better when you're appointed? If you have a Democrat governor, they appoint a Democrat leading Secretary of State. If you're a Republican governor, they appoint a Republican. So we are constitutional officers, and we stand and we come before the voters, and you get to make your choices on who do you want for your governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, all down the ballot. But I think the Secretary of State should be elected. And I think that let the General Assembly do their work, because if they ever get too far out of line, the voters will take note of that, and you will probably suffer consequences. And that's what happened after the 2000 reapportionment. There was a lot of gerrymandering that went on by the Democrat Party, and all of a sudden, that didn't work out too well for them. So I think the General Assembly was very mindful of that and tried to really build and try to keep counties compact as it relates to your congressional districts. The House is really difficult because it's trying to find that 58,000 folks, and sometimes in rural counties, that could be 3 counties, and you get up in Fulton County, and there's thousands, hundreds, lots of them. 2 blocks. Yeah. Yes, sir.
The poor dead voters, in person or absentee?
Well, they didn't show up, so they were absent. And it was family members that sent in absentee ballots for their family members. And so a couple of those have come before the state election board. The other 2 will be coming forward to the state election board.
Was there one that passed away between the time the vote was cast in?
And so that happened in one of them. And that happens. But I know how John would have wanted to vote. No, it doesn't matter. You got to be alive on election day. So we laugh now, but when you come before the state election board, they don't think it's a laughing matter.
What does happen when somebody gets an absentee ballot, send it in, vote, send it in, and pass away? Does that vote
It won't count. It won't count if they've passed before election day. Yes, yeah, that's tracked.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that. Had a great question.
I notice that's happening more and more to me today, these days too, so I get it. Happens to the best of us.
What are some of the top leadership lessons you've learned over the past year?
I think that,
Good crowd partners.
I think we have a great team in the Secretary of State's office. We've always worked together, and we want to support each other. And I think we've been willing to listen to each other to make sure we're getting the right decision on, issues. For example, when we did the recount, by law, we didn't have to do a hand recount, but we did. And I really pushed hard for that because when you do a hand recount, that's going to prove two things. What is the count total? And did your machines flip the votes? They didn't flip the votes because we had virtually the same number. And I think also, I've always said that whatever people are, I think that we should always be respectful of people's positional authority. It's a little bit, when the centurion comes forward and, he says, Lord, I'm under authority. So you just give the word. My guy that's 200 miles away, he's going to be just fine. And it's really that. So it's really recognizing people's positional authority. And I think sometimes we don't respect people's offices that they hold. And I think we really need to be very mindful of our speech at all times. I think that's really the best thing that we can do, particularly when we live in a polarized nation. And it's really a 50-50 nation. But I think if the more we speak with calm voices and base things on fact, I know that half the people will be happy and half the people won't be happy. But I think as long as we deal with facts, then maybe we can get through that. Yes, sir.
Gotta get, is doing things like selling an absentee ballot or buying an absentee ballot or voting twice, anything like this, is that actually a criminal offense? And do those people, are they ever prosecuted?
Yes. So that's a lot of questions. Buying and selling absentee ballots, that would be, well, that's really vote buying, but also that really touches on ballot harvesting. That's both illegal. There can be felony charges. The fellow that was voted in North Carolina and also voted in Georgia, North Carolina got a hold of it. They fined him $1,000, and he came and told us, his story. We fined him another $1,000. So we both took a whack at it. And there can be felonies, especially we had a lady that worked through a funeral home down in Milledgeville, not a funeral home, assisted living. And the people already, some have had passed already, about 15 or 20 people. And so we sent that to the local DA, and that would be a felony charge also.
I'm not gonna do that anymore.
I know you were joking. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. I can't imagine volunteering for that job, but thank you very much for all you're doing and how you're handling it. You're representing us well. In honor of your speaking today, we're going to make a donation to Polio Plus, which is Rotary's initiative to rid the world of polio. So thank you for being here. Next week, we'll feature Matt Mallory giving us an update on the world of insurance. And don't forget that the parade is this week. So if you want to walk and represent Rotary with the Jungle Bus, be at St. Mark's at 5:45. Otherwise, we are adjourned. Thanks for being here. Anytime.